21st, 2022 Bismarck Human Relations Committee meeting to order. The mission is, the purpose of the Bismarck Human Relations Committee is to create an atmosphere of inclusion, equality, and outreach to recognize a diverse community. Okay, can I get approval of the minutes?
Make a motion to approve.
Is there a second? Motion by Sardiana, second by Tia. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion's carried. Next item is public comment. Is there any public comment on, are we using Teams days?
No, public comment would only be from those in the room.
Okay, thank you, anybody. Not seeing anybody, I'll move on. Documents, HRC 1017 PDF.
30 minutes.
That's the attachment.
Yeah. Okay. And then the 20th anniversary celebration. Jason, how do you think that went?
Good. Sergiana, did you wanna do a report on it?
Sure, Jason, I will do that. Although it wasn't as well attended as we would like, the event went very, very well. Myself, Jason and Tia were there the entire time. Trevor came, Geraldine brought her dance troupe. The entertainment was all amazing.
Yeah.
Like, I would hire them all again in a hot second.
Yeah.
And it went very well with the mayor to speak, for Pastor Carr to do the invocation. And then Tia talked about our past history and everything, which was very informative. So I think that, and how we staged the event, spaced it out, I think it went very well. And then Jonathan from Dakota Outright came and spoke too, maybe a little longer than he maybe should have, but he had a lot of good things to say. A lot of good things. So I think the event, the amount of time we had was pretty good as far as the 2-hour event.
Yeah.
And that people could come and go as they please kind of throughout. And the food, I think was a hit.
Yeah, we had way more. than
Yeah,
that.
we had donated all our food. Sassy had brought a lot of food too. So I think we had then donated it after the fact of what we had left. But, I think the event went well. We did talk about if we could do this event again, maybe do it a different time of year, potentially. Looking at that, or maybe doing it in the summer outdoors or something like that. But I thought it went very, very well. And yeah, I think a lot of good connections that Jason had as far as entertainment went. The only stickler thing with that, and it wasn't a huge deal in the end, is that they were looking for payment that day, which we didn't know till like, what, an hour and a half beforehand
Yeah.
for those two. But
And we're working on,
I got it.
you
I got
did,
the check, yep,
great,
yep.
glad
So,
that worked.
so,
Thank you for doing that.
yep, no problem.
Sorry that we're any
No.
hardships, glad it's made its way to you.
So what do you guys think?
I will add, cause he was broken. And so, I mean, it was a lot of work for essentially, I mean, he sat there and was able to set up our table, but for only 2 people, like it was extremely, I think it became a lot more stressful than it needed to be for the setup portion. Just cause there was also technology, like just trying to figure everything out. And I was there about noon. I mean, I got there pretty early. So it was kind of stressful, and then tear down as well. I mean, it just more volunteers. Well, I feel like we were appropriate numbers for the amount of participants that we had for
Yeah.
volunteers. But just that setup and tear down, even if people, cause I agree, I think, I mean, that event, it was fun.
Mhm.
It was, I mean,
Entertaining, and the people that I had that were from the community that were there loved it.
Yeah.
And he still talks to you about that event.
it was,
So,
like,
yeah.
your dancers and
The singer.
yet, but like, well, I'm biased, I love those singers, I think they're phenomenal. I think doing it outdoors in the summer would be phenomenal, but even if we set it up in shifts like we did for the Pride event, where even if someone can't stay for the whole thing, if they want help with setup or you know, cause even like I still have almost all of the HRC supplies in the back of my husband's car, which I forgot to bring. I drove my car today, so, it was a lot, in my opinion, for a couple long
And I
times.
think it got a good word if people would have been there, because it had a lot of the HRC stuff that we had sitting out where people could just go look at it and things like that. So the mayor was very appreciative. I've talked to him since then. He was very appreciative of our committee and the event and everything like that, so.
Yeah.
Fortunately, no city commissioner showed up, nor any past HRC members.
Unfortunate.
And I know October, I mean, it wasn't a extremely busy month this year, it seemed like it was tough.
It's something every weekend, which isn't usually the case.
Yes. And, but yeah, I mean, we had a couple local candidate, local, like state level candidates, come participate in everything, and I was extremely proud of the event that we were able to put forward.
Yeah, but I think having volunteers is key for us, cause it seems like every event we're short.
Sadly, that's nothing new to this committee.
Yeah.
Nothing new to me.
There's a small group of people that do a lot of things, and then there's everyone else.
Something that may be helpful in the future is if we could come up with, an agenda to put out ahead of time so that people would know, oh, you know, just come and go as you please.
Oh, yeah.
But I wanna come and see the dancers, or I wanna come and hear the history, or I'd like to hear Bill Patry speak, you know, that way people have an idea. We could even put a refreshment break in the middle, you know, to give us a little more breathing space where people would have time to mingle and whatnot. But just different ways to try and kind of streamline it a little more. I think when it's so vague, people are not apt to come as readily, you know, I don't know.
And I think too that, if we did it in the summer, like, you know, we were on a time crunch with the library and everything, but even having, you know, yeah, if we plan for like a 2-hour event like that again, even if the musicians stayed and played music a little longer, or we had like an additional hour for people just to hang out and socialize, it would be good as well.
I'm sorry, about Bill. He did an amazing
Yeah,
job.
he did.
So interesting stuff that he said, such a good speaker.
So, so you think it went okay, and maybe if we do it
You
again.
were there?
Yeah, you guys were both there. What did you guys think of it? I mean, you were kind of nose deep in everybody where they needed to be.
That's okay.
You know, but
Job. That was my first one, so I was super excited. I think I was more excited than thinking of what was happening. Yeah, but it was fun, and my group really appreciated the fact that you had them coming to do or to sing. He's a new musician,
Okay.
trying to put his name out there, and my kids, we've danced a while, but we've never done that before. Any city commissioner.
Good.
Yeah, they were really, from my end, I was just happy with it, but that was fun.
And I guess one other note maybe is I know that there was a press release that went out, and I was hitting up all of the reporters that I know. It really would have been nice if we could have somehow secured media, like,
At the event.
That's something that we're working on here with Kalen. We're going to be very soon meeting with the news directors at the stations. Just last week, I had a conversation with one of the reporters from KX, and I said, hey, did you happen to get this press release? And she said, I get 700 emails a day. And I said, well, how about you flag the ones from Kalen Ost, because those are coming from us. Those are gonna be stories that we're bringing to you with hopes of this mutual relationship of we bring you stuff and you report on it. And she said, will do. So we got 2 stories out of that last week, and then also that human connection to say, okay, here's what we're trying to do, and she gets it. So going forward, he can be more deliberate about, I need you. I want this story. Here's what's going on. Here's where you need to be, and let's do this. Once we've built those relationships, it's a lot easier to fall in those favors, so to speak. And like a lot of places, the media around here is a little short staffed as
Yeah,
well.
and that's, I
So,
know what, that reporting is about.
Yeah.
But I would give it a 10 out of 10 on the event itself. It was phenomenal.
see what this is. Okay, somebody let me know, but we're closed.
You just left.
Oh, do you wanna go on?
Podcast, name of the program.
Wait for Juice to come back, trying to come back. I done the, it's on your son here. Have you guys done the more spots for Dakota Media? Those usually, we never got a time to go in there. But I'm gonna miss an email.
No,
I did
Yeah, I
not.
didn't get one either.
They sent one with a, okay,
we can reach out if you'd like to see if we can set it up, but are we able to do that? We allowed to set up?
well, certainly, yes, it's not a
Okay,
city office by any means, but I guess I thought, maybe I misunderstood, but I thought that there was a doodle poll or something that went out that said, hey, who's available and when, and then that,
That was like a long time ago, and then Mary Van Sickle came here. Like after then, there's been nothing since.
okay. Caitlin and I just had a meeting with her this afternoon, actually, about, and other parts across the river there as well. And the idea was to, how do we work on things together that benefit the entire community
mhm,
and not just the Bismarck side? So there, between Kalen and Carrie, who is the Mandan communications person, there's gonna be a lot more stuff coming forward. So, but this, obviously, this group is much more focused in Bismarck. Mandan doesn't have a similar committee, to my knowledge, so.
yeah.
Yeah, we should.
We should go across the river. Let's work in the abandoned. Go across the river.
Could certainly be the Bismarck Mandan Human Relations Committee. We have the Bismarck Mandan Convention Visitors Bureau, Bismarck Mandan Chamber EDC.
We just empower Mandan to
Yeah.
raise their own.
That sounds.
Yeah.
Empower them.
Tell them they need help.
Yeah. Um. One thing we kind of mentioned or brought up at the 20th anniversary event is that this whole next year is our 20th anniversary. And so we could still utilize Dakota Media to be able to talk about that and do some spots. So
And decide if we're gonna have another lecture.
right, and we had mentioned, hopefully we'll be able to do something like this again a few times throughout the next year. And so even if we do an hour long, one going forward where we have a talk on like human relations within the community or do a couple different topics. Looking back when we were going through the history, it was cool to see like when I think it's Carla Busnick, when she used to be in here. They would do the talks up at BSC and they would pair with the diversity committee that they have up there, which I should know because I sit on it, but I think it's been a while since they've done something like that. So, and they would bring in different topics, indigenous peoples topics,
Okay.
New American topics, different things along those lines, and then have a speaker and an open forum up at BSC. Does that sound familiar since you've been here, or did that?
Not in my time here,
Okay,
no.
so that it was at least, I'd say 3 or 4 years running they did it.
Okay,
And that might have been 10
probably.
years ago.
Then we can promo that on our podcast.
Right, so, yeah, podcast. Thank you.
That's the next item on your
Circling
agenda.
back around, yes, Trevor brought it up, so we didn't move on to that, and we all get this. Get this back.
Yeah.
Oh, look, squirrel.
Right?
Okay.
We have a name of the program.
She had, Mary had a name, which I thought was cool, but I don't remember what the name was. It was like, how many meetings ago? What do you want?
Yeah,
Do you want something in human rights in the name?
Can we ask, can we table this until next meeting and then, have Mary come back in?
I think she said we're good to go. I don't think we need to table it.
Yeah, you guys,
I think we've
as a
tabled
group,
it twice now.
yep, you need to discern name of the program, what's going to need to happen before anything gets done is you're gonna have to build at least a schedule's worth, I'd say a year's worth of discussion. Just to speak freely, if I may, consider one episode per month. Okay, and then just know that that program will be worked into their radio programming where it will play multiple times a month. It will never be live. It will always be pre-recorded. But then also as a podcast, it's available on demand wherever anybody gets their podcast. So, excuse me, think about one program a month. Think about some common denominators. And what I mean by that is there one host and multiple guests? Are there two hosts and multiple guests? But I think to build some continuity to the program, there needs to be familiar voices each time. Or a familiar phrase that says, you know, I'm so-and-so and I'm here on behalf of the Bismarck Human Relations Committee. This month, we're talking about diversity in our schools or Indigenous peoples or whatever that subject might be. But you're gonna have to build some of that formula, some of that foundational work. And then when you get to that point, if you've got 12 topics, you're gonna have to start to kind of outline what the questions are. Are we having, is this all radio? Is it purely on the radio? And if it is, great. Then you don't have to worry about any video content or picture content. It's just simply voices, which is totally perfect. But you also need to think about your guests. How many of these are we going to record at a time? Before you do before any of them get on the air, Dakota Media wants to have 6 of them recorded and as part of a program. So what we would hate for anyone to do is get a whole head full of steam and then only do 2 or 3 episodes and then it just kind of fizzles. So if this is going to be a project that this group is going to be working on, there needs to be some pretty devoted commitment, I'd say from all 9 of you in some capacity. And now it might be helping to write questions or brainstorm topics. You don't have to have your voice on the radio. That's not what I'm saying. But I think if this falls on 2 or 3 people, it's going to be a lift that is soon to die.
In my mind, and just throwing stuff out, how about a possible name would be, these are your neighbors. And we could start with, hi, this is Jason with Bismarck HRC. We're coming to you tonight and welcome to These Are Your Neighbors. These Are Your Neighbors encompasses everything, you know? And then each night we spotlight, or each episode we spotlight somebody, some group, some enterprise within the community, and these are your neighbors. Can keep it simple. I was trying to wrap my brain, I'm like, let's come up with something like the humanity in you, and like.
I think that's perfect because it's like very generic,
You know,
broad,
It gets
and you focus on anything. I think this is something that we need and it's gonna promote our committee. We're talking about continuously promoting our committee.
Yep.
This getting out there and everybody has to share it. Everybody has to commit to this. Because a few of us commit to everything and it can't be that way.
We just completed the year-long podcast series for the Mental Health Advocacy Network.
okay,
We had Patrick Kirby from the Do Gooders Network help us put that together,
nice.
and it is some work. We did, I think, 10 episodes over a year.
Yeah.
I think it like, cause for this whole group to sit, like for us to all iron out. Cause I think Jason's right, we'll need to have at least a fairly good grasp on, okay, January's this, February, like what our 12 topics will be.
People we can highlight or groups we can highlight.
Yep, and then so maybe even if one person in the group wants to potentially take point and just say, okay, we're gonna start laying this out. in any capacity before, so when is the actual date of our next meeting? I don't know, it's off the top of my head, but let's say it's,
Yeah.
so a week before our next meeting or 2 weeks from now, if you have ideas for conversations and who you think would be a guest, let us know, because once we have our 12 topics, I think then we can say like, okay, we'll ask everyone on the committee who actually wants their voice on the podcast. So if all 9 of us do, then we know, okay, some of us are more versed in this, this, and this. That would be the committee member, 1 or 2 for that, and a guest. Because how many people did she say we could have in the room? Was it 4 max?
Well, it's maybe changed even a little bit since Mary was last here. So DMA has now created a kit that is basically portable. So if anybody's listened to the program Red Gaze, for the longest time, that program was recorded in the radio studio, and there were sometimes as many as 5 people in there. There's now a kit of equipment that the producers of Red Gaze can take to their home, set up this stuff, which is basically a microphone and a recording device, and they can have an entire room full of people. Now, I've listened to that program, and it's a little different than what I believe your program would look like. Theirs is a group of people that is essentially reviewing a film, and they're looking at it through the lens of a Native American perspective. That works when you're all talking about a singular topic, but a lot of times there becomes 2 or 3 voices competing. I would see this as more of a question and answer interview type system and not necessarily a round robin of everybody in the room chiming in. And so therefore, what I put on the screen is actually something that Kaylin and I have developed. So the mayor, little sidebar here, the mayor is going to be hosting a monthly program on Dakota Media. It's going to be called Bismarck Insights with Mayor Mike Schmitz, and it will be a 30-minute one-on-one interview with various department directors, community leaders, whoever the case might be. Episode 1 was recorded last week, Friday at DMA. This was kind of that foundational script. And so Kaylin and I put together, a real quick, here it is, Bismarck Insights with Mayor Mike Schmitz. The first guest was City Administrator Keith Hunke. So we helped the mayor. He didn't read any of this, but this was all stuff that we provided to him to kind of form those ideas and begin those conversations. It's simply 2 people back and forth off the top of, whatever the conversation is. We shared these questions with Keith because we didn't want him to be caught blindsided. We wanted him to have the time to think about what it is he wants to say and really get into those true questions. We put 6 questions together and it was 30 minutes easily.
Yeah.
You get the right guest there. You get a Bill Patry, you get a Geraldine in there that can speak from this area of expertise. 30 minutes is going to go very quickly.
Yeah.
I don't think we'll have an issue getting 12 people.
No,
You find your people, develop your questions. I would suggest something, if you can, seasonally, so if there's a month, if it's Indigenous Peoples Month, if it's Pride Month, all of those things, that's where you start to build your schedule. Then you figure out who your people are, then you develop your questions from there. So I would say step 1, come up with a name that everybody's comfortable with. The 5 of you are the ones that get to choose tonight.
I think we should use
These are
this
your
as idea.
neighbors?
These are your neighbors.
does anybody disagree? 'Cause that's okay too, or if you have
No.
another idea.
Just on that too, there was a program that, we had back then when I was in the university. It was called Know Your Neighbor.
No, you're.
I know your neighbor. I like that.
So when that came up.
Would it need to be,
Unique.
it would probably need to be Bismarck's Know Your Neighbor
Right.
or Bismarck HRC's Know Your Neighbor.
Yeah, so here's Mary's voice in this conversation with the mayor. The mayor came to us and said, I want to do a program. We said, great. What are we going to call it? He said, I don't know. You guys figure it out. Well, Kaylin and I bounced around a few ideas and we landed on Bismarck Insights. And Mary said, that's great. Mayor said, that's great. But Mary said, you have to tag it with the mayor. It has to have credibility. It has to have recognition. It's not just Bismarck Insights. It's Bismarck Insights with Mayor Mike Schmitz. So if it's Know Your Neighbor, it's get to know your neighbor with the Bismarck Human Relations Committee, or however that works. You have to brand it. You put your logo on it, put your name on it, it becomes yours.
But there's a lot of know your neighbors.
Just to get to know your neighbor with.
What about get to know your neighbor?
Let me see.
I'm sure there's,
It's not bringing up a list like it was before. No, most of them is know your neighbor. Get to know your neighbor, SBCDBH, a government one, another government one. So get to know your, and that's the only one that comes up on Apple Podcast. So get to know your neighbor, Bismarck HRC.
Yep.
HRC gets to know your neighbor.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think that you put your brand in front of it.
Okay.
Or it's get to know your neighbor, brought to you by the Bismarck Human Relations Committee, something like that. You've got to identify with that, so people start to affiliate who you are with what you're doing.
So, as Tia was saying, someone should do point on this, so. Do we have to then, Jason, I'm assuming this is what has to happen, like if we wanna send an email to all the people that aren't here. Draft it, send it to you and Whitney, and then you'll send it out to everyone to
Mhm.
respond?
We can just do a summary, at last night's meeting, this is what happened.
Yep.
For those of you that weren't there, just know that you've all been given an assignment.
You by this date.
Yes.
Yep, that's
That
bad
for
for
the next meeting, each of you should come with 3 ideas. And start to see if there's some commonalities. If we say 3 ideas across 9 people, that should be 18 programs.
Even if you just look at what each month represents for various parts of the community.
And we have a schedule to help guide our social media with that. Now, we would certainly share that with you, and if there are subjects that we're not aware of,
Right.
all the better. But we've done some of that work to help start that conversation.
I know that the diversity committee up at BSC also has like a monthly layout because they rotate displays around campus based on different holidays and, monthly seasonal things. I think if we kind of do a compilation. Gosh, I can't talk about that.
Yeah.
Compilation.
I was like, that's.
Violation.
Compile.
If we compile, we should be able to come up with something good. Do you want us to maybe do a task of turning everything in a week before the next meeting? So it can.
So the next meeting is December 19th, which means the 12th will be the day everything goes out. So if we could have things by that Friday, which would probably be December 9th.
Are we allowed to, could I say, I'll take point if people wanna individually email me? And I can, so that we're not compiling, you guys aren't stuck compiling
We'll
everything?
take it.
Okay.
That's fine.
And I was also thinking there are people like me who forget but really excited when things are happening.
Yeah.
If we can have like a chain email, with one person send their idea and then another person responds to that.
I think we can do.
We gotta be careful with that because it's open meetings, because we're government, and so what we can't do is we can't build consensus away from this table. So it could get to be a little challenging. So you can rely on us as staff to say, here are some things that have come up in the last 2 weeks and we can kick that out. Really what that does is it kind of tees up the discussion for the next meeting.
Yes.
So as we always do, we encourage people to come to these meetings, but I think it would be best if you've got more the merrier.
Yeah.
There's a couple of voices that aren't here tonight that might have some suggestions or ideas. So I think what we could do is we could kind of package what I'm hearing from this discussion, bundle that into an agenda for next time, and then build consensus, get motions, and then solidify things and start to deploy activities for the month of January and February.
Well, one thing I'm gonna bring up though, with the holidays coming up, maybe give people a little more time.
Well, all we're looking for ahead of the next meeting would be suggestions or ideas for
Yeah.
programming.
So we can start the conversation.
For this 3, everyone should be able to say 3 people at this, I can tell you 20 people right now.
Well, limit it to 3, say 3 or more.
Yeah.
How about that?
Cause even you may not have a topic, but maybe,
somebody,
Bill Patry would be phenomenal.
Yep.
So then we base our conversation around what he brings to the table, so yeah.
And maybe that's a good idea in the email, say, you know, if you have a speaker, maybe put a topic next to it that you think they'd do well at, or
Mhm.
something along those lines. Or if you have a topic, maybe there's somebody you know who could touch on it.
Cause I think we all have kind of our own little passion
Yeah,
projects, and so if, you know, if we're all kind of suggesting, I mean, even if everyone suggested two things, we know we'd be getting some diversity, so we're not very like heavily focused on one subject.
And I think the only bookends on the ideas for subject matter is it has to align with the mission. The purpose of the Bismarck Human Relations Committee is to create an atmosphere of inclusion, equality, and accessibility through education and outreach. This is outreach all day long. And you park your ideas under those three categories of inclusion, equality, and accessibility.
so I can't have someone teach me how to get more sleep. Like that's
Wrong group.
You find that, I'll put them.
I think you'd have.
so you can find a way to incorporate that into our three topics. I think everybody would benefit from that.
Depending on the engagement of your subject matter, you might find a way to. 30 minutes or so.
I guess one thing too, just because. And maybe I'm overthinking it, but when we're thinking of topics or individuals, anytime we talk about diversity, inclusion, sometimes there's that potential for controversy or, you know, how much do we want to let that, you know, because frankly, in the world we live in, I can say this is red, purple and this is green, and that could be. So I think we do need to be somewhat careful, but I don't know if it should withhold us from talking about,
I hear you.
yes.
I'm more apt to say our neighbors might be controversial
Okay.
and maybe we should be talking about some things.
There's some topics that we should talk about.
Right,
Sure.
that need to be addressed, you know, a lot of us kind of advocated for the hate crime ordinance. And we saw the huge backlash that just didn't seem.
Logical.
It seemed like a lack of knowledge. And so I think it is cast upon this committee to try and bring up the humanity of your neighbor and maybe why things, you may not be seeing things the way that others do, such as your neighbors, you know?
And part of that entire meeting, if I remember right, the city commissioners, I think especially Markford, had said that there needs to be more of those conversations.
Yep.
When they weren't even aware of some of the stuff, which, okay. But they want those conversations there.
So here we go.
And
So
then
we're
bring-
on the areas we need
bringing their heads in the sand.
Nancy to come on.
There you go.
That's what I'm hearing.
She was at her event, Nancy was at her event.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yep, the only city
Knitting.
commissioner was a
Of course,
Baltimore City.
She was making something.
Yeah,
It's just, that was a good public relations person, and you know, but I 100%
I
agree
mean,
with
we
you.
probably shouldn't take very risque conversations, but I think challenging conversations can fall into that, you know?
The mayor made it clear to us when he posed this idea of the Bismarck Insights program. He said, I don't want a bunch of softball questions. If there are topics that we need to discuss, we need to discuss them.
Okay,
Don't
that's
hide from
good to
them.
know.
Now, don't invite controversy, but
Right.
yet don't shy away from the elephant in the room if
Yeah.
you can do it in a diplomatically appropriate way.
Yeah, I think what Bismarck is lacking actually shows an atmosphere where people can voice what they're thinking without being judged.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people who want to say things a particular way, and they're looking for that space to say it. As you said, diplomatically, you can say something, and people, you can phrase something and say it in a way that one. For me, I never see things as controversial or something. For me, it's like it's creating conversation.
Mhm.
Yeah, everything that comes out create a conversation. It can be negative or positive.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it's out there, and now we can speak about it. People, and there are going to be groups of people who take that in a very usually. No matter how good you say something, somebody will have something see that.
Yeah.
That's why we acknowledge that.
If I can offer just an observation from the staff side, so you're going to want to get in front of the city commission when you have all your elements put together, and it's not to necessarily seek consent or permission, but it's to raise awareness and to tell them, we heard what you said last year in June, and here's how we're responding. And we're going to do this, and we would invite all of you to at some point be a part of our program and to listen and to know that we are trying to carry the message.
So you harnessed our,
You asked, and we're responding.
And I don't know when we're gonna have this done by, but we could coincide it with it if it's not done by then. When we do the annual report too, of upcoming things for the next year, we
I would say if you can hone a schedule that looks like a full year and you've got very specific topics, you've got guests lined up, you've got subject matter discerned, and you get 2 or 3 of these recorded and show momentum, I think DMA is gonna say, let's go. We're not gonna wait to get 6. Let's just show that you are committed to this project and it will be successful.
It is.
and just because it's a half-hour program, doesn't mean it's gonna take a half hour to record.
Honestly, twice as long.
Can you email out, I don't know if you noted to ask all of the committee members if they want their voice on the radio
Okay.
too. So I
I
think,
have zero issues with it, but
well, just want to know that, no more.
I would do it, but I just, with my schedule the way it is, I can't commit.
Yeah, we definitely don't need everyone's, some people just aren't comfortable.
And even coming up with ideas or helping with questions, you know, even if you're not on the air, there's ways to be a part of this per project. And that's because there's a lot of moving pieces, you know. I've always thought difficult conversations are good to be had. After the hate crime ordinance meeting, I had some friends who were very disheartened because of the turnout of people not for it. And I just explained my outtake of this, and I had to learn this myself by like disengaging from different Facebook formats or different pages and stuff, is that just because 15 people showed up against it, this is a city of 80,000 and 80,000 people didn't show up against it, only 15 did. And they may be very loud at times, but they don't speak for a whole city that's been quiet, you know, they're just speaking for themselves. So, I don't know. I feel like our town is more ready for this than they let on.
I think we are not going to know the response till we start to.
Yes.
Whatever we are sitting here is,
Mhm.
is going to be the possible outcome. People might receive it or just badge it when it starts. So
Yeah.
the only way you can know what the outcome of it look like is if you start. Yeah, so.
So it probably goes without saying, but I'm gonna say it anyway. Our office will help promote the hell out of this through social media, news media, all of that to, number one, raise awareness for it. But then when there are new programs that would become part of our regular social messaging, was to say, here's a link, here's the latest podcast, here's the topics. Here you go. So, and since we had a video that went around the world 7 million times, we now have a much bigger audience than we did in the past. Didn't you catch that part?
No.
One of the snow videos that was posted during the blizzard
Yeah.
has almost 7 million impressions on Facebook. And we, during the blizzard, gained something like 1,700 followers.
Nice,
So we've suddenly gone from an audience of 9,000 to over 11,000.
nice. And they all complained that their road wasn't clean.
Oh, yeah. People in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan were telling us how to better clear our snow. It was outstanding.
I got a message from a friend in Buffalo where they got 77 inches of snow.
We have nothing to talk
She's,
about.
she's like, do you wanna complain about the snow? Come here. Yeah,
Hey, I think we have some good momentum.
So if I can just run this by the group, and if I miss something, then tell me, but what I've got here is a to-do list for us. Email the group, kind of just give them a summary of what we talked about here today. And then ask them to come to the next meeting with at least 3 topics, and not just topics, but also potential people that could be a guest And then the other thing would be to ask them, or just for them to consider what role they would like to play. One role, if somebody's not comfortable having their voice on the radio, is to develop those questions, those lead-in subject type discussions. Having done it, it takes a lot longer than one would think.
Yes,
But maybe there ends up being a couple pairs of people where Tia is gonna be the voice and Jason knows the background, maybe Jason writes the questions and Tia takes the time on the radio, or however that works. And you'll develop a rhythm the more and more of these you do. I guess maybe a question I would ask, and it doesn't need an answer from the 5 of you, 6 of you. Is there a common denominator? Is there one singular person that is on the program every single time as the quote unquote host? And then maybe there are 2 HRC members and 2 guests, or 1 guest and 1 HRC member. Having done nearly 200 City Current episodes, it's pretty handy having a common denominator there all the time. It builds that consistency, it builds that recognition, it builds that identity that, oh, I've heard this person's voice before. Who is this? What are they talking about this time? As opposed to 9 different people talking about 12 different subjects.
So it could be where we have one host, but other HRC members are able to participate in rotating episodes.
Yep.
I like that, because then it's not just always one voice.
Yep.
But there's one like
common
opening
denominator.
and,
Yep.
you know,
There's always somebody. So when Mary and I do City Current, or when Mary and Jim Newbauer do City Current, Mary always starts.
Yep.
This is Mary Van Sickle. Today it's Tuesday, December 21st or whatever. We're here in the studios at Radio Access 102.5 FM. Today it's a Bismarck edition of City Current. So that means Jason Flonick, Assistant City Administrator with City of Bismarck, is here. Jason, thanks for joining us. Blah, blah, blah. So you develop that opening bit.
that's fine. Yeah.
And then you say, and joining me today is Carmel Young. And Carmel, we've also got so-and-so in the studios with us today. We're gonna talk about, and then that person maybe kind of drifts away a little bit. And then Carmel, being the subject matter expert, carries that dialogue a little bit. That third person is there to interject or to say, you know, Bill, I heard you say this during your response to Carl. Did I understand you right, that it means this, that, or the other? So we are so guilty of that here, using acronyms and jargon.
What that means, yeah.
You might need somebody to help translate just a little bit to put a different perspective on the comment that was just made. But to have a singular host to carry that voice and then to invite other voices, I think it requires more people, but it also builds a stronger product in the end.
Yes,
Maybe that's something we do, like, if there's 3 people that really would like to be that. Maybe we do an unofficial vote or something that's meeting, like, give everyone that opportunity, so like, I
Can you commit to being the host?
commit,
Hello.
like, that's just it, they have to be able to commit,
Good.
you know, and like, just be kind of honest, because I
And
know
meeting at the.
you and I
county
would
building,
love, like,
remember, I
we've been
texted
dreaming of podcasts, right? Like, this is like,
Okay.
but
Here's my
realistically,
laundry.
do we have the commitments, the capabilities, and just that comfort level? So even if that's something we discuss next month to kind of,
I'm even open to just throwing names in a hat,
And drawing,
you know,
yeah.
instead of
Like,
voting.
all the people that would want to do it.
Right.
Yeah.
Meetings or
I
whatever.
think, to me, that's more fair. I would hate to try and, like,
Be like, oh, your voice.
I'm voting for everybody.
yeah, close, like thumbs up for Tia, thumbs down for Geraldine.
Like,
No, that's so left, right,
Yeah.
left, right. But yeah, no, I like.
Thumbs down.
I'm like,
I've done 3 hours of French
I
class
know.
today, my brain was shot.
Good.
But yeah, I like
I
that
do.
idea.
That makes more sense.
To wrap back around, Jason, regarding your notes. I think you said that the names need to be by next meeting, but I thought we're having the names by December 9th, so you can compile them.
Yeah, these
Okay.
questions, I would give everybody that,
Yeah.
December 9th deadline
Okay,
to submit everything, and then we would compile it, make it part of the packet, so everybody can review it a week prior to the meeting. And then hopefully come with a whole bunch of opportunities to make decisions. We can clear the deck on next month's agenda and just, in addition to election of officers, Either that's gonna be December or November, January.
When do we find out, like, for those of us that have to reapply,
Mhm.
when do we?
So, great question. Trevor asked earlier, the way that process works, the applications close at the end of this month. We will consider all the applications that come, here, we'll review them with the mayor. Ultimately, it needs to end up on a city commission meeting, so it'll either be the first or second meeting in December, and recognizing we've got 9 different committees that are seeking positions.
Yeah.
My guess is it's gonna be the second meeting in December, so it's gonna be as late as possible that we can tell you.
Okay.
But we would know, so say there's 3 positions on this group and we only get 4 applications, we're gonna know pretty quickly who those 3 are. We'll tell you that your name is being recommended for your position.
2 things. I need to get my application in.
Mhm.
And then when we go to the Bismarck Human Relations Committee, it still has our old,
Oh, send that to Whitney.
okay. Our old
How'd that get there?
logo. No idea. I'll get it Later.
Okay, yeah.
But then you have my application too, Dave.
It's already in. Yep.
He just needs to do his own.
I did, yeah. Hoping I'm not good at taking care of my
You
own
weren't so damn
business.
busy, you wouldn't have to listen to me either.
I was really bummed that I couldn't just find what I entered last. It just.
Mhm.
I saved everything.
Yeah, sure.
There we go, join our committee. Okay, it will be done tonight. Hopefully.
You know who I would think would be a good applicant if somebody would resign would be Bill Patriot.
Mm. Mhm. I think he's getting to the point though where he wants to start stepping back from stuff. That's why he's stepping down as he's been trying to step down as the chair of the Martin Luther King holiday celebration for 3 years, if not more.
Is he stepping down, yeah?
If we can find somebody to step up, yes, which I think Julie
Nominated myself.
and then
Nominated.
recommended you. Yeah, I saw that in the email. I was going, yes.
I'm like, I'm paying.
I sent the email.
Thank
I
you.
need to get your email address to send it to you too.
Speaking of P3,
Yes.
are we done with the podcast?
Yeah.
I have enough.
Okay.
Other business.
Other business, I have some.
Other business,
We just vote to give whatever we have left over to the Martin Luther King Day celebration.
does that have to go to the city commission or no?
It did last time on consent, just as a formality, but then also to help raise recognition for it. And we talked about it on City Current and
Yep.
it gets it gets your name out there again. It identifies the HRC with known things in this community that are great. So
So can we, to just, can I make a,
I just need a motion in a
I make
second.
a motion to donate whatever is left over to the MLK celebration?
I'll second.
Do we have to say the amount, Jason?
She covered it by saying whatever's left, so.
Okay.
So I'll write it as
And I'll
the
second.
remaining Human Relations Committee funds for 2022 for the 2023 Martin Luther King Jr. Day celebration.
And they'll take that right away?
It'd be neat if we could bring a miniature of the Martin Luther King memorial from DC.
Mm.
I was there in September, and that's the first time I've ever seen that memorial, and it is. Wow.
Yeah, I was there, it's beautiful. So I made a motion, Carl seconded.
Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Those opposed, motion carried. So done.
One thing I have is, Jason, can you remind me when we're going before the city commission for the annual report? So I don't procrastinate.
When do we know? March or April? Yeah, so if March works for you.
Which months, which days again? Which
Second and fourth Tuesdays,
5:15 or 5?
5:15. Typically, the first meeting of the month is generally shorter because the second meeting of the month often has public hearings that come up from planning commission as part of the process. So if you're looking, I think it's March 14th is the first meeting. Then we meet Valentine's Day.
14th, yes.
Okay.
I'm good, I can do it that day. Then we just need to do a public notice if we are gonna have a quorum there. Or
We would take
just
care of that. Yeah, we would just notice that there may be a quorum, but no action to report.
That's all I have,
Legislative session coming up in less than 2 months.
sir.
Oh, yeah, we haven't really compiled anything that we wanted to keep an eye on for the city. That's another thing, isn't it?
We, our city administrator Keith Hunke is designated as the city's point of contact. He will monitor all bills and legislation. Now, obviously, there are hundreds of bills that get worked forward. If you happen to see something that is of significance to this committee, please let us know as early as you can. What Keith does is every city commission meeting, he reports to the commission with the bills that we are tracking. And he asks for the commissioners to take a position. Support, oppose, or monitor. And so if there are things in the world of human rights or human relations that you catch, make sure that you let either Whitney or I know so we can get it on Keith's list so he can track it down and get a position from the commission on whether we're supporting, opposing, or monitoring.
So we
Good
can-
if there's a hate crime ordinance coming.
Yeah, we can make recommendations, but it's ultimately up to the city commission, how the city takes a stand on it.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
But at least we'll be on the record as what this committee recommended to the city. Okay.
Yep. And unfortunately, this group, of course, just meets once a month, so there might be something that comes up that,
Right, last second.
yeah, and if that's the case, and I'd like to think that this office's understanding of where the HRC wants to be is pretty close to where you all want to be yourselves. So if we see something, of course, we're not just gonna wait for you to bring it to us.
Okay.
We're gonna look at it and say, oh my gosh, this is something that we need to be keeping an eye on.
I think we all are in agreement that we truly appreciate the city administration
Yeah.
here. Because it's not often that you find a lot of support in this region for things that our committee stands for.
I think the first round of bills has to be in by the 8th of December.
Is that what it is? Okay, and then final cutoff is end of February or beginning of February?
Crossover.
Yeah.
Crossover, they have to be done before then. It's like the 3rd week in January.
Okay,
Put it on Martin Luther King Day.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep.
Okay,
I know we're introducing 5 different pieces regarding fetal alcohol.
Yeah.
So,
we're introducing some, trying to protect pensions for state, city and county employees.
good.
I'm just trying to give people raises.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did we ever have a vote on the motion?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Sorry, I just didn't take a note here.
I'll go volunteer it off at a particular event.
Oh, yes, last thing, and I'll make it brief, very, very brief. The MLK holiday celebration is January
The 16th.
16th. It's a Monday evening. And though we do donations, last year we also had a table there. We were hoping we could be of more help, that evening. It's usually an hour and a half.
What time's it at?
I want to say 7,
So we have a meeting that night.
okay? So
I'll
we would
traipse
go-
over there. Well, at least I have that in mind. Oh, no, I
You get punched back a
So
Yeah.
week.
a week to the 23rd?
Yes.
So it'd be nice to kind of coordinate a little bit more with the MLK holiday celebration to see where we as a committee could be more supportive than just financially.
It's an amazing event.
It is, and it would be
But
nice
it takes a lot of time.
out of the evening.
Yeah,
Mhm.
you were there.
Couple hours, me, Jason, myself and Trevor were there.
Yep,
But I mean, we meet once a month. I don't think it's horrible to ask our committee to every few months. spend
So I think we
a couple
only
hours.
showed up like half an hour early maybe.
yep,
set it up.
Popped up and then
And then
went up to the
after-
event.
We went up to the event and then after we stood by you could basically leave whenever you wanted.
Yeah,
We talked to a lot of people,
yeah.
I remember.
Where's the event held at?
Trinity
Trinity,
Lutheran.
yeah. And, who, African Nomad did the catering. Yeah.
Zane,
Then, yeah, so just being able to get volunteers, it'd be nice for us as a city committee to get more involved. To try and take some of the weight off of that committee, you know. A lot of them are getting older and wanting to step back, and so if the city as a committee, we can step in. And supplant that a little bit and kind of put that in our, you know, regular event that we do, is that every year we just know we're gonna be doing this. And so everyone just knows to show up that night. In any capacity that you're able to,
With your shirts on.
with your shirts on.
And bigger shirts.
Okay.
So is Bill looking at getting a volunteer to take over his spot as well?
He's trying.
we tried to get Jason to do it last year already.
I would love to, but no.
I don't know if I'm-
Once school is done, Geraldine's gonna do it. I will support Geraldine
Julie
100%.
Julie said she was going to do it, so support you.
She can do another book.
Let's have the energy.
I mean, I'm available that night to do it.
Yeah, I think I'm on military orders, but not till the 17th or the 18th, but I'll be gone for a meeting, if I'm back, I'll be gone for a meeting in January, just some annual trainings.
I'm going to be there anyway, I'm part of the committee.
We will.
That's all I had.
Anything else? If not, can I get a motion?
Motion to close.
Second,
Second,
all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion is carried.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Nice job.
Yeah.
Carl. I have a big